This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 145, live from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. First and foremost, we got to, put out the social media out there. You can follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me on X at Ant Rivera 86 and subscribe to the Subway to Shea podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you're watching it right here on YouTube. I also want to shout out the Mets Evening Brew on Morning Brew Sports Network. We got a show tonight, so I am doing double duty on Mets Talk, along with Eddie Presti, Alison Trone, myself, 9 p.m. Make sure you check that out on the Morning Brew Sports Network YouTube page. Another shout out to last week's guest, Dexter Henry, sports anchor for New York Post Sports and SNY, as well as the update anchor for WFAN and Infinity Sports Network. He also hosts New York Sports Rundown and New York Got Game if you love basketball, and you can check him out at DHenryTV on all his social media platforms. Shout out to you guys in the chat, 29 people, and I didn't even get started yet. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Today's episode, we're going to be previewing the London Series, taking a look back at the series against the Nationals. And here to join me today to talk about this London Series all the way across the pond from the UK, my good friend Tom Rayfield. You can follow him on X at TomNYMUK, and he's a contributor for Mets in the UK. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Ant. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing yourself?
I am awesome right now, and it's got to be a lot of fun out there getting ready for that London Series. The Mets are already there. They're doing a lot of, social media and a lot of public appearances right now. So we're going to get into that. We're going to preview the series and talk about that as well. So I got to, again, shout out all the people in the chat here who are joining us. Duran Rivera in the chat. Got Patty in NYC, Carlos Ortiz, Tracy Wilkes. How you doing? Maureen is in the house. Got my guy Matt Ibi Ibanez from Till Mets Do Us Part. Lane Kerner, Brad, and G Money Stacks 555 in here as well. Appreciate you, my friend, and thank you for joining the show. We're going to get right into it all. There's a lot to talk about, and let's talk about that sweep that the Mets did on the Washington Nationals, a much-needed sweep as well. What a series that was for the Mets. Pretty complete there. There was a lot of nervous moments towards the end of the game. But game one, the Mets hold off a late rally from those Nationals into win 8-7. Tyler McGill, who had probably the best start, I think, of maybe of his career the game before, wasn't as good this time around. 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 of them earned. 3 walks and 4 strikeouts, but we got home runs from Mark Vientos. We got a 3-hit game from Jose Iglesias and Luis Torrens in his first debut game, 2 RBIs. Adam Ottavino struggled to close this game out. He's been struggling all season. You can even date it back to 2022. In the playoffs, he struggled to try to close out that one game that the Mets won. He gave up 2 earned runs, but Diekman came in and bounced back from that game that he blew on Sunday to save the game on Monday. Game 2, Harrison Bader and Pete Alonso powered the Mets to a 6-3 victory. David Peterson, another solid start coming off of his hip surgery. 6 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. He got home runs, like I said, from Harrison Bader, number 3 for him. Pete Alonso, number 14. Multi-hit games for Francisco Lindor, as well as Alonso, Bader, and Brandon Nimmo. It was another nail-biter with Reed Garrett trying to save the game, but the Mets ended up winning. They put the tying runs on base in the 9th because what else would the Mets be doing? But they did end up winning that game. And then you go to game 3, and the Mets pretty much owned that game, crushed the Nationals to finish off the sweep 9-1. Luis Severino, solid in his start, 8 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. We got home runs from Francisco Lindor and 2 from Luis Torrens. So it was nice to see the Mets take care of business there. And the entire lineup had at least one hit in this game, and that was very nice to see. It's nice to see a different tone with this Mets lineup. Tom, what were your takeaways from this series?
I think for me, it's nice to see the boys winning again, smiling and enjoying baseball. That's something that's great to see. The fact that Iglesias is like slotted into the lineup really well, he's just hit the ground running, which has been good to see. Same with Terens as well. Like you say, it's good that he's come up and done his thing. Bit of healthy competition for Nido, which is great. I'm a pitching guy myself, so it's been nice to see David Peterson back on the mound. It's good to see him back after his injury. Didn't have a horrendous outing either, so it's good to have him back as well.
Yeah, when you look at the two games, and I think those pitching performances from Luis Severino and David Peterson, they kind of get lost because of how well the Mets hit in this series. But 6 2/3 innings pitch, almost 7 from David Peterson. You get 8 from Luis Severino. And this is things that, we're salivating over for this pitching to kind of give the bullpen a rest. And they do it at the most opportune time because now they have 2 days off. They're going to be fully rested and ready to go for the London series.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've seen Severino go long before, so I'm less surprised with him. I think, like you say, though, 6 2/3 from Peterson coming back from an injury, that's great to see. Long may that continue. Hopefully he's got his stuff back together. We kind of saw it before he went off with his injury anyway. He kind of had turned things around, whether the pitching lab had a bit of impact there. But yeah, overall, the whole series, like, really good to see. Lots of positive vibes from that one. I'm just so hopeful that this weekend they're going to carry that forward into the London series. Maybe, I don't want to jinx it, but maybe they've got a bit of momentum going forward. I just don't want to see us get swept by the Phillies in London, and as long as this series in Washington's come at the right time, I hope so. There was the photo on the team bus. They're all smiles, which I know was controversial to some, but it's nice that they seem to be together. They want to help each other out. They're there for each other. They're having fun. We saw the laughing and joking at the end of the games. It's what you want to see. We don't want to see them miserable. It's not what you want to see.
No, and it's not fun for us. It's not fun for them. Look at these stats right here. Since that Mets meeting last week where the whole thing went down with Jorge Lopez and then the players had their team meeting, 5-2 since the meeting, 3-0 since that picture on the bus that you were talking about, 4-0 when Jose Iglesias starts. And I start a comment here from Duran Rivera because he gave me the shout out. I've been begging to promote Jose Iglesias, and the Mets finally did that. And, nice to see them winning. It comes at the expense right now of Jeff McNeil. And I would assume that on Saturday he will be sitting as well because they'll be going up against Ranger Suarez, another lefty. I think it's an opportune time to have Jose Iglesias continue to be in the lineup. If they have to, I am platooning these two guys.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one with McNeil because we've seen 2022, he had the year where he won the batting title. We know he can hit, but just something's not clicking. Something's not right. And I don't want to dump on the guy because I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
I look for the positives. I don't want to diss the team when they're playing bad. But there's just something that's not quite right there. And everything from his approach, the anger when it doesn't go right, it suggests that it's much more of a deeper problem. And the thing that I'm reading as a fan is that Jeff doesn't know how to fix it. And that's, for me, the concern. So you're right. I think, Iglesias is here at the right time to sort of fill that spot. Selfishly, it would have been nice to see Trace Thompson up because he played for Team GB at the World Baseball Classic. It would have been great to have him over here, hometown representation. But, Iglesias is playing well. And yeah, I can see McNeil sitting. I really can. It's good that Mendoza and Stearns have this approach of, if you're not playing well, you're out of the team. There's no sort of, you can have a pinch hit here or a pinch run there. It's very much, nope, you're not playing well, you're out of the team. And I think that sends a message to the players. They've got to step it up. And after some of the results we've had this year, I think that's much needed.
Yeah, they definitely need to step up their game. And, the Mets front office, they're kind of piecing this puzzle together, right? They're trying to figure out what works and what's not working. And they do not hesitate to make moves if, one, the team is not playing well, if the players have not performed, and in obviously Jorge Lopez's case, some undisciplined behavior, I guess is maybe the right
Yeah.
term to put it. But, you look at what they did. Obviously coming from David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza himself, Eduardo Bruzella, who's the VP and special assistant to David Stearns. They released Jorge Lopez. They released Omar Narvaez, who was not playing well, traded for Luis Torrens from the Yankees, who we got to see a nice sample from in this Washington series. And, he's right now only a couple games, but already 300 batting average, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. He's got a walk, 1.364 OPS. Other moves that they made, sending Brett Beatty down, who's actually, I think, with them right now as maybe the 27th man. I know they carried 2 people. I forgot who. I think it was Luke Hudson was the other one, or I can't remember his first name, but I know it's Hudson, or Joe Hudson. I think it is. He's the other possibility as well.
Right.
But they send down Brett Beatty, Christian Scott, who, don't be alarmed, Mets fans, Christian Scott will be back. It's just, I think, for this series. So he will be back. They also sent down Josh Walker, who was struggling. But like we talked about before, recalling David Peterson, bringing up Jose Iglesias. Even for the bullpen, the Daniel Nunez they brought up. And you look at Peterson in his couple of starts. I got all the stats here. 3.09 ERA, 5 strikeouts, 1.29 whip so far in 11 2/3 innings pitch. You look at Nunez, a 2.31 ERA, 19 strikeouts, 0.94 whip in 11 2/3 innings pitch as well. And then Jose Iglesias has a 389 batting average, 3 home runs, a walk, and a stolen base at 865 OPS. What did you think of these moves that the Mets made, and which one has the most impact for you so far?
Oh, that's a good one. I think, like you said before, they're still trying to figure out the puzzle. We've got to remember, Stearns is dealing with a team that he's not assembled. It's very much a Billy Epler mess, for lack of a better word, and Sandy Alderson as well. There's still some players as a hangover from that, the players that he drafted as well, going all the way back to the Wilpon. So it's not something we were never going to see a complete turnaround back to 2022 levels of winning this year. It was always going to take time. He was right. He was very honest and open from day one. He needs to figure out what we've got. And I think the moves that we have seen have allowed him to do that. They've given him this opportunity. Like you say, Christian Stock coming up, it's given him an opportunity to see that he can handle it in the big leagues. He did well. Not amazing, but he did well, considering it was his first time up. You're right. He had to go down. The London trip and the days off and things like that mess with the schedule. But I think, regardless of the moves, we just got to kind of trust the process. I feel much more like we're in capable hands with Stearns, even though, the results haven't been going the way. It's been frustrating as a fan. We've not been seeing the results that we want to see, and we've been losing in bad ways. And it's been lots of 1-run losses. It's been difficult, and we all know it's been difficult. It's been a horrible period of watching Mets baseball, but I think we're going to see a lot more of these moves as the season goes on. We're going to see a lot more of these other players given a chance. They'll go up, they'll come down, they'll try and figure things out. And yeah, I'm okay with this year being that kind of year. I think if this repeats again next year, I'd be concerned, but I don't think that's going to happen for 1 second. I think he already knows where his good players are and where they're not. But I think, we'll certainly see a few more of the likes of the Iglesias coming up from AAA, getting a few games in and then going back down again. I know we've got quite a few players with options in the minors, so it's a good position to be in. Obviously, there's the trade deadline. We're playing well at the moment, but it's still, anything could happen between now and then. We've got a lot of players on 1-year contracts. There's a lot more deals that can be done. The Torrens one came out of nowhere. No one saw that coming. Our good friend Cash Considerations might be coming back. It's all good. We'll just roll with the punches this year. And I think that's kind of the approach that we're going to need to take with this team and the front office and the way that they're doing things. Just, like Jeff said in the comments there, let him do his job. The guy knows baseball. And the fact that the Brewers, Stearns is gone, and they've moved on from him, they're still absolutely crushing it. Like they're still doing really well. They had one bad season, which was Stearns' first season, And ever since then, they've been an absolute powerhouse in their division. So I think we've seen what he can do with a small, no disrespect to the Brewers, a smaller team, a smaller market team on a lower budget. And
they know that too.
Yeah.
There's no shock to them. They know that they are on a small budget themselves.
Yeah, and he's done wonders with that team. You know, Craig Counsell's left and they've still carried on. So it's not the manager. Clearly, it's a well-run ball club. So if he can even copy over half of that template onto the Mets, I think we're going to be absolutely fine going forward. We let him do his job. He knows what he's doing. He's shown he's not prepared to accept mediocre performances. He's prepared to make difficult decisions and ship people out. And, you know, we know from before, Steve Cohen said he's happy to eat money if he needs to. We've seen that Narvaez has been released. That's a good chunk of money gone. But I think, yeah, we're in safe hands, and it feels nice to say that for once as a Met fan.
You know, you brought up a lot of good points here, and I think a lot of these do really favor the Mets. Look, you look at the standings right now. There's only, 4 teams? At the last that I checked, there was only 4 teams in the National League that are over 500. So the Mets are still in this. Even as bad as they have been, they are still not out of this just yet. It's still somewhat early, but, you know, that tends to shrink. They are in good hands, I think, with David Stearns, and you have to let this play out for the 5-year contract that he signed on for. You have to allow him to kind of clean out the past and allow him to develop his future. And like you said before, you know, we have people from Sandy Alderson. We have, you know, Jared Porter, who made a couple of moves before he was gone. You know, that's the Lindor move. He's still here. He's going to be here for a while. Yeah, I mean, you have the moves that Zach Scott made and Epler. So, like, it's just a mix mosh. And when you have all that difference, it's different philosophies coming into one to make a team. And now you finally have David Stearns, one set philosophy. This is the guy that they wanted. This was the guy that Cohen wanted since 2021. And now that he has him, you got to let this guy take care of business and put together his team. And that's not going to happen this year. It's going to take a year or two. So we'll see how that happens next year, how it develops and into the future as well. But, you know, the Mets are still in a good spot here. And I hope that they are able to navigate this. And I know that they will under Stearns correctly, where, you know, maybe they won't buy like right off the bat. Maybe, you know, they will sell some players, even if they are close, just to make the right move for the future. So we'll see how that goes, you know, as the, you know, season moves forward. And you know, we talked about McNeil and Iglesias, and there's another, you know, kind of battle brewing right now. And we talked Tomas Nido, Luis Torrens, with Francisco Alvarez, who we'll get into shortly, getting ready to come back soon. You know, who are you keeping up here? I know it's just only a short sample size for Luis Torrens, and Tomas Nido has gotten to know the pitching staff, especially in the minors, and now he's more comfortable with these guys. But we know what kind of Tomas Nido is right now, and maybe Luis Torrens can be a different kind of jolt. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree completely. You know, we've seen Nido's ceiling, we've seen his floor, we've seen everything from him. He's been a very loyal servant to the club. You know, he's not complained when he's been sent down. He's just gone about his business. He's done really well in that role that he's got. Like you say, he knows the AAA pitching staff well. I guess you've got to kind of look at that as how much more are we going to see Christian Scotts and some of the other talent from AAA come up? How much are they going to be added into the lineup and coming up and down? If that's the case, then yeah, absolutely. You've got a case for Nido because he knows the players. And, you know, whilst Torrens has certainly got the better bat from what we've seen so far in the small sample size, knowing your pitchers and being able to call a good game is something we've missed with Alvarez. You know, Narvaez's ability to call a good game or to pitch frame has been horrendous. There's the ERA of the games where he started versus everyone else, and the stats kind of speak for themselves, really. So I guess it depends on where they want to go from a catcher's perspective. Do they need the catcher as a bat, or do they need the catcher as defense? Do they need them to call a good game? Because I guess with Torrens, he must be on quite a low deal. I don't know what his deal is, but he must be on quite a low deal for the fact they've been able to take him over from the Yankees.
I know that his contract with the Yankees, like he had an out around somewhere around the time that he got traded. So, the Yankees made the most of it to trade him and get something back. Otherwise, they were going to lose him anyway. So that part I do know. I just don't know what happens now. I think that both Nito and Torrens may be out of options for this. So
Right.
whoever gets sent down, it's probably they're done after this.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it depends on how long it's going to take Alvarez to be back and fully back to, because obviously he did well in Brooklyn. There was the no the other night, which was great.
Yeah.
But he's going to need phasing back in. There's no point throwing him back into playing, 6 games out of 7, because you're going to potentially run a risk of another injury there. So I think it's a case of, see how things go between now and then. Does Torrens keep up this hot form? If he does, maybe there's a case to keep him. But I don't know. It's too small of a sample size. We still don't fully know about Alvarez when he's going to come back properly to his best. Maybe there's case for 3 catchers. Maybe Alvarez can do a bit of DHing, keep three catchers on 26. I don't know whether that would work.
Yeah, I you know what? I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of the fact of carrying 3 catchers. The Mets had done it before, but I didn't think of that, especially with these guys. I do like the way Luis Torrens has been throwing runners out at second base, which is very crucial for this team because they are not really good at holding. At least the pitchers are not really good at holding, the runners at first. A lot of stolen bases against them, a lot of walks, which leads to those stolen bases. And you have, Nito has been okay. Omar Narvaez has really not been, and he has not been a great pitch framer. So that's why we've been seeing a lot more of Tomas Nito. Not to mention that he's been hitting a lot better as well, which is a nice sight to see. But I guess, at the end of the day, this is a really good problem to have.
Yeah, I'd much rather we had competition in positions than people feeling like they were comfortable and could just get by with coasting.
All right, let's get into some of these comments here. Tom, you're the talk of the town here. Ibby saying you're his guy. Tracy Wilkes here to support you as well. Mets in the UK person. And we got Lane Kerner, also CP from CP Mets and Knicks. Check him out as well. He's got a great channel as well to check out. Rosie K, great to see Mets fans in the UK as well. And there was a question here that I wanted to get to. Lane Kerner asks, are the Mets going to wear the gray uniform? So I think it's both. I think they get one home game and one away game, correct?
Yes. So the Saturday game is the Mets home game and the Sunday game is the away game. I believe they're wearing the whites, even though it is a Saturday game. It's not a City Connect game. I think they were quite clear on that when they did the schedule of when they were going to wear the uniform. So I think it's just whites tomorrow, Saturday, and grays on Sunday.
G Money Stacks 5555 has a question that we're going to get into because it leads into the next topic, which is the injury update right now. Francisco Alvarez, since we've been talking about catchers, he's been out since April 19th with the torn ligament in his left thumb. He caught the combined no-hitter, like Tom mentioned, in Brooklyn on Tuesday. And Will Salmon of The Athletic said he will catch 9 innings with AAA Syracuse on Friday and Saturday, and then he will DH on Sunday, should be returning to the Mets as the London series wraps up. And I know that has to kind of be, it has to suck a little bit that you don't get to see Francisco Alvarez, in the London series. But, if he comes back healthy, adds another layer to that offense that has kind of really stepped it up since the changes have been made to the lineup. And, whether it's been Lindor batting leadoff, moving Jose Iglesias into the lineup, there's just been a different, aura around this offense. And I think it was Duran Rivera who said they have had 11 hits in 5 of the last 6 games. So it's nice to see them getting the hits. It's nice to see them scoring runs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think moving Lindor to leadoff has been such a breath of fresh air. It's been really great to see. He seems to be enjoying it more as well, which I think is great as well. It helps with the morale of the team. But yeah, I'm disappointed Alvarez and Diaz aren't coming over for the London Series. I'm not going to lie. Diaz is one of my favorite players. I've got his jersey, but yeah, I want the Mets to win ultimately. Like I'm rooting for the team. Like it would be nice to see the players play. It would be nice if we had a full strength team. It'd be nice if Senga was here. You know, all of those things would be nice. But as long as we go out there, put out a competitive team, have a good game, really take it to the Phillies, and you know, if these guys can come back in the short term rather than the long term, like we're going to see with Senga, you know, if it helps the team in the long run, I'm all for it. I just hope that we see them back to their best as soon as possible, and that, you know, that phasing in period for Alvarez doesn't take too long. I think we've really missed him in some of these games.
Yeah, we definitely have missed his presence, his personality, his energy. Everything has just been different since he's been gone. They were 12-8 to start the season with him before he got injured, and then they went on that turn for the worse for most of May. And I think they were 9-19. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was just like June of last year almost. So it was very disappointing. If they could somehow turn this June upside down and get back on track. They already started with the 3-game winning streak. I do think they can at least get one of these games, if not both. And that's not just being a homer, but once we go over the series, you can tell that this is a team, the way that they're hitting right now, that they can take 2 of these games down in, you know, up there in London. And, you know, you talked about Edwin Diaz. He's been on the 15-day IL with the right shoulder impingement. He threw a 21-pitch bullpen session on Tuesday, and Carlos Mendoza said he will pitch 1 inning for Brooklyn on Thursday. And I had this question from G Money Stacks that says, with Edwin Diaz on the injured list, which pitcher of the Mets would you choose, I guess, to close, whether it be Reed Garrett or Daniel Nunez? And for me right now, it's got to be Reed Garrett. I think you want to continue to boost his confidence because he has pitched well this season. He hit a little, you know, dry spell. He's given up a couple runs here and there, but every time he's been asked to close, he's pretty much delivered on that. So right now, I would say stick with Reed Garrett, but I know they're going to do the mix mosh, right? Adam Ottavino will probably get another opportunity, even though maybe we won't want to see that, but he's definitely going to get another opportunity to close, as well as Diekman. But Daniel Nunez, and I talked about him earlier, his stats here, he has 19 strikeouts in 11 2/3 innings pitched. He has been very good.
Yeah, I've been impressed. I think the bullpen has been patchy, as it often is. Guys seem to get on a good run, and then out of nowhere, it all just goes completely horribly wrong. I think they just need to relax a little bit. You know, it seems like we've walked a lot of players with the bullpen, and the walks, for me, it shows the nerves. Like they're trying to do their bit to save for the lack of runs in some of the games that we've had. So the bullpen are trying to compensate for that. And I think they're just trying way too hard to get the pitches in the strike zone, and that's why we're seeing the number of walks that we are. You're right on Garrett. I think, you know, he is solid. The first 8 games of the season, he was ridiculous. With his ERA was like less than 1, and he was looking incredible. But yeah, Daniel Nunez, I think he's been a breath of fresh air as well. It's good that these guys have come up and they've done what they need to do. Not consistently. I'd like it to be more consistent. We all would. I think it'll be interesting to see how Drew Smith comes back once he starts throwing again. I'm not saying I want him in the closer role. Far from that. But I think it'll be good to see whether he's still got some stuff in him. I wouldn't really say there's anyone left in the bullpen that really worries me. They're all serviceable, solid guys. There's no one that's really lights out. And like Diaz was in 2022, where you knew he was coming into the game, everything was fine. But I think, yeah, they're solid enough to get things done. What worries me is the depth the starters can go into a game. And this weekend, we've got Quintana and Minaya starting those games. And sometimes they can go, like Minaya went deep in one of the games. Quintana has gone deep in the past, but we've not seen that consistently from them. And what worries me is that we're going to end up with bullpen games in the London Stadium where certainly if you go back to the Red Sox and Yankees series,
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a lot of home runs. And we know the Phillies have got bats. They are, as much as I hate to say it, they are probably the best team, certainly in the National League at the moment. And that worries me. Bryce Harper's going to have a field day if we're throwing a bullpen game.
Well, you look at some of the comments here. Maureen saying, the game in DC was giving her heart palpitations at the end because of the way the bullpen was pitching. Shea Parking Lot says, closer by committee, whoever is ready that day, if we are even in a closing situation. But I hope, we get some of those, starting pitching that we got on, Tuesday and Wednesday when David Peterson gave us 6 2/3. And then Luis Severino gave us 8 innings. That's definitely stuff that I want to see coming from this Mets team for sure. Let's go back to some of the chat that's in here. Carlos Ortiz says, I still believe we have a shot if we keep playing the way we played in DC. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If, and that's the big thing. If they play the same way they did, because we need to see more, right? We've seen it in 2-3 game stretches. We need to see this for about like a month to feel somewhat decent about this team making some type of run. And the fact that teams are under 500, a lot of them in the National League, helps this cause. But the Mets really need to lock down the bullpen, because every night, and I said this, I think it was on Monday, it's like, I can't do this every night where the bullpen is making it close or, blowing the game. You have a 3-run, 4-run lead and the relief pitchers are nibbling the plate. Throw strikes. See if they hit the ball. Put it in play. Get outs that way. You don't have to nibble up 3 runs like that. That's where it gets frustrating to see with this team. And I just hope that they figure out a way to change that with the bullpen. Change I don't know if it's a philosophy change or what, but go after the hitters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to see the benefits from the pitching lab. There was a lot of talk about the investment they've made into that side of things. And you could argue that's worked. With the start to the season Reed Garrett made, you could argue that is working. We've seen that. But it is a work in progress. I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to fix magically overnight. But I think in all areas of this team, consistency is the thing that we need to see. We need to see consistent scoring of runs. We need to see consistent defense. We need to see consistent pitching. And when all that comes together, it's great. It's magical. We've seen high-scoring games from the Mets in this DC series, and it's been lovely to see after the sort of the dry spell that we had before it. So I think maybe this trip's come at the right time. Maybe this is, there was some talk on Twitter earlier today about how the players are really excited for the family meal. Some of the players have been sharing pictures of them going around London, seeing the sights. Maybe this is the confidence boost they all need to lift their spirits and really bring them together so that they are on that same sort of wavelength. They are going to start being a bit more consistent with each other, really get to know each other as well. And yeah, hopefully, like you say, we'll see this as a bit more of a start of a run. We'll start to build up a few more wins. I believe we're only 3.5 or 3 games off the wild card spot.
So the last that I looked at, it was 3.5. So
it's not a massive gap. That's easy. You win a couple of series, and certainly against other teams in the National League, you're going to start climbing that up again. It's too early to start talking about the wild card now, but it's still within its reach. And I think the players know that it's very possible. And how much do they want it?
It's such a weird season that we're seeing, not only in the National League, but with a lot of star players off to some terrible starts. You look at some of the guys in Toronto and, all across the league getting off to some rough starts. Let's go back to the comments here. Shout out to Aaron, Blue Shirts Banter. Let's friggin' go Mets. Let's take over London. You got Blunt Thoughts in here. Hector, let's go Mets. Jeff Coing saying, and this goes back to the whole conversation about Luis Torrens. Yeah, Mendoza did know him from his time with the Yankees, and a lot of that came in that article with Will Salmon, was talking about, how they looked into bringing Luis Torrens in here, knowing not only Carlos Mendoza, but they're from the same country, so it works out well for the Mets. So maybe that comes into a decision of whether or not that they keep him. Tracy Wilkes, on here saying, guys, please follow Mets at Mets in the UK. We'll be trying to bring as much content as possible. Yes, please do that. I posted it on Twitter to follow Mets in the UK as well. Great content that they have coming out. Tom's a part of it, and just excited to have you guys be not only a part of this podcast now because you guys are in London, but for the future as well. Shea Parking Lot saying, Tom, what's up? We got Jeff Cohen asking, wasn't the London game? So I got a 20-game plan for the Mets. The London series was not a part of that. I wish it was, but that was a whole separate thing. I don't even know if season ticket holders had that. I think that this whole trip was something separate from if you were a season ticket holder. But if they go again, I would definitely like to be there for that. I'm right podcast. That's my guy, Nick Durst. He also is the host of the Believe in the Mets. You've seen him on this show. And this is very important to remember because they could have lost the first 2 games to the Nationals. So he's not buying into the sweep yet. That's okay. It's good to be cautious because that's all we can be. I feel like as a Met fan, you always have to be cautiously optimistic, especially with runs like this. But we'll see if they're able to, generate anything from this. And like you mentioned, they've been bonding up there in London and going out and sightseeing and all that stuff. Maybe it does something. I don't know, but we'll definitely see what happens from that. Carlos Ramos in the house as well. What's going on, my friend? And as we go back to some of these comments here, we got so many comments in the chat, so I want to make sure I get to them. My guy Keith from Shea and Sons podcast, I think he's going on at 5:30. So make sure you check. So much Mets content today, not only for me, but for Mets Weekly as well. And I think the Mets Roundtable is going to be doing a show. There's so many. I reposted it on my schedule. I just don't remember everything off the top of my head. Believe in the Mets says Jose Iglesias should have been on this team since April. I totally agree. He should have been on the opening day roster over Zach Short. That's what I thought. I thought he should have got it over Zach Shore. You can even say he could have got it over Joey Wendell as well. He had a great spring. If you look at his stats throughout his career, he's been a very good hitter. And I thought that that's something that the Mets needed. And they just tried to go in a different direction, which just didn't work. And now Zach Short I think he's on the Braves, and Joey Wendell got it released from the Braves. So, the Mets definitely made the right move to me in bringing up Jose Iglesias, no matter how long this lasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Short got released by the Braves as well. It'll be interesting to see whether they go after Narvaez or Lopez, as is often the case. The Braves love signing former Mets. But yeah, I think he had a good spring training. Let's see how long this lasts, and hopefully we see good solid second base from him. He's flashed the glove a few times as well. It's not just his bat that he brings to the game. There was the catch he made the other night was fantastic. The throw to Pete on first was brilliant. So I think he certainly offers a lot more than the bat. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think he had a catch to end the game too. I think he had that nice little snag to end and finish up that game. We got a couple more stuff on the bullpen here, and some. We haven't mentioned him, but a lot of guys like Duran Rivera, very impressed with Danny Young in the bullpen. And I saw another comment about Danny Young from G Money Stag saying, I was impressed with Danny Young as far as him being in the 9th inning lefty. Now that Brooks Raley is out of commission with another injury for the rest of the year. You got Brooks Raley out. You had Nate Lavender, who had a great spring. He's also out. So the Mets are going to have to rely on, Jake Diekman. They're going to have to rely on a guy like Danny Young, and I'm pretty sure Danny Young will go back down, and then Josh Walker will come back up. So that rotation, Diekman's not going anywhere, but the rotation between Danny Young and Josh Walker, I think, is something that we're going to probably see more often than not. Ibby saying the pen makes it difficult. This team going 16-8 in June would get them a game under 500, but this pen is going to make having a strong month difficult. It is. And they really have to show us something, right? Like the Mets have made strides with the offense, putting in different pieces, making different moves, changing around the lineup. And it seems to have worked with this team. Now we got to figure out how to fix this bullpen, right? I mean, there's so many interchangeable pieces that are there, but now you're getting Drew Smith back. He's healthy again. And, that kind of moves certain pieces up and down the roster. If Reed Garrett can kind of right now hold on to that closer's role, maybe Jake Diekman gets a few save opportunities, which we'll probably see. Adam Ottavino is really the only one that I don't want closing. There's enough sample size from Adam Ottavino to show going all the way back to 2022. And I was there. I was there for game 2 of the wild card series where the Mets were up 4 runs and they asked Adam Ottavino to come in and close out the game. And he loaded up the bases and they had to take him out and bring in Seth Lugo. So, it goes all the way back then. We saw everything we needed to see last year and it continues this year. So I don't want to see Adam Ottavino close. Put him in the 7th, maybe put him in the 8th where he pitched very well. What are your thoughts on Adam Ottavino?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think put him in 7th or the 8th, absolutely fine. He's more than serviceable there. He's got the experience. He knows what he's doing. I think it's just that pressure situation, like you say. It's back to that walking the batters and loading the bases again, isn't it? Some pitchers have it. They have the ability to keep cool, and that stuff doesn't phase them. And others, like we've seen with Ottavino, we've seen it with others as well. It's not just exclusive to him, but that pressure gets to them. They walk a batter, then they walk the second one, and then before you know it, they're walking in runs, and it's all falling apart. So, yeah, Seth Lugo would be great, but
what is he? 9-1 now? 9-1,
Yeah.
10-1, I think.
Ridiculous. I wish we'd given him a role as a starter. We definitely could have done with him in the starting rotation, but
can you believe 2 of the pitchers, one of them is injured now, but 2 of the pitchers that the Mets kind of did not want to give starting pitching roles to, and I don't know if fans would have been excited about it if it happened instead of, signing Verlander or re-signing DeGrom. But Seth Lugo going 9-1 right now or 10-1, and then Trevor Williams, who was 5-0 before he got hurt and missed his start in Washington. I mean, those 2 guys have been just a revelation to the teams that they're on now. And the Mets kind of, I guess, dropped the ball on that whole situation.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about Williams in that he did such a good job in that sort of long swingman role that fans kind of call it the Trevor Williams role. And it wasn't even like that far in the past, but it's kind of become known as that role because he did such a good job. I would have loved to have seen him kept around, but maybe he was that desperate to be a starter and less of a swingman. Maybe that's why he wasn't able. I think the Mets would have kept him. They certainly would have at least tried. I think with Lugo, he was keen for a fresh start from what I've heard online, what I've read.
Yeah, I think Shea Parking Lot says it correctly. Lugo is exactly what he wanted to be with the Mets, but the Mets didn't want it. He wanted to be a starter. And he did so well, too, in 2016. He was a really good starter. And then they just, they put him in the bullpen. A lot of injuries happened, and he ended up having to be the one to go to the bullpen. And, he had that really good 2019 where when Edwin Diaz couldn't close, they had him close. And I guess they were like, let's just stick with this. And it ended up being that he didn't want to be here. He wanted to start. And, kudos to him and Kansas City. The Mets have always had just such a hard time. And like Believe in the Mets said, with evaluating their talent. And, hopefully that changes with David Stearns when he brings in his own players. You see like with obviously Jose Iglesias and, Daniel Nunez. So, hopefully that changes. Once again, I'm here with Tom Rayfield, contributor for Mets in the UK. Tom, this is what we got you here for. We got to preview this London series coming up, and I got the tale of the tape between the Mets and the Phillies. You look at it, the Mets right now 4th in the National League East, 27-35, looking all the way up, all the way to those Philadelphia Phillies, who are 44-19, not only first in the NL East, first in the National League, but I think they are either tied at the top with the Yankees for the best record in baseball. Look, they obviously own all these stats here. Better batting average than the Mets, 253-242, better home runs, 71-69, almost 40 more to 50 more RBIs, 305-259. Stolen bases, they have 71 to the Mets 46, and that's something to watch out for, especially with the Mets leading the league in walks at 251. And then you look at the OPS, 737 to 703. They do lead in all of these categories in hitting, but I will say this about the Mets hitting. Over this past week or two, all of their stats have gone up pretty exponentially, especially with the batting average and the OPS. So that's a good sign. The ERA, 292 to the Mets 421, who the Mets had for so long in April been one of the top in the league, and that may just basically crush them. They have more strikeouts, 584 to the Mets 546. And obviously, like I said, the Mets lead the league in walks, 251. The Phillies have only thrown 176 strikeouts, 176 walks. What do you think of this matchup so far? How can the Mets kind of counter this Phillies offense?
I think we just need to put the ball in play. I think we need to just try and go back to the small ball. It's not glamorous. It's not going to win any highlight reels. It's not going to wow the crowd in London. But we've shown that if we can get on base, we've got the runners, we've got people that can steal bases. I think that's probably the way that we're going to really be able to take it to the Phillies. I'm not so convinced in their outfield defense. It's not stellar by any means. And yeah, I think if we can make sure that we're taking it to them in that way, I think, like I said, as long as it doesn't turn into a bullpen game and Quintana and Mania can go 6 or 7 and we don't end up burning out the bullpen on day one, I think we stand a chance. It's possible. The trip over here might have affected them. It might have knocked them out of their routine. We might see a very different Philly side. They might not play as well in the London environment. I'd love to see like the 2022 game where we came back and won it in the 9th. I'd love to see that. That would be a great game to watch. I think either way, it's going to be a close game. We've seen a lot of games where we've either won or lost by 1 run. I don't think it's going to. I hope I'm right. I don't think it's going to be like a Phillies whitewash where we're going to see them score like 9 or 10 runs and the Mets just going to get nothing. I think we're going to get something out of the game. The players are going to really step up to the occasion and playing in a new stadium. I'm really excited, if you can't tell. Like, this is proper Christmas Day and everything rolled into one. Like, I'm so hyped for this series. I'm going to have a great time. Me and the other guys in Mets in the UK, we're all meeting up at the pre-games on the Saturday and Sunday. There's so much going on. And I went last year to the Cardinals Cubs series. I went to the Adam Wainwright start, where he absolutely fell apart. And I was sat there in stands thinking, like, what am I watching? Who is this person? That's not Adam Wainwright. This is shocking. But the atmosphere in the stadium is fantastic. 50,000+ people all cheering on baseball. Everyone's there in different jerseys. It's not just going to be Mets and Phillies fans. It's a real celebration of baseball. We see all the teams well represented on the day. Everyone really gets stuck in, and it's just a really friendly, positive atmosphere. And yeah, I can't wait to be back in the stadium, seeing Mets baseball. The fact that it's over here is incredible. My birthday is the Sunday, so the fact that I get to see the Mets on my birthday in London is just, out of this world, and I really can't wait.
We just have such a big contingent, and this is even before the London series came out. When I started my podcast, learning about how many Met fans there really are in the UK is just amazing. And you guys are leading the charge at Mets in the UK, and obviously that's great to see that happening. It's going to happen in London Stadium, home of the West Ham United Football Club of the Premier League. And I wrote it down, but G Money Stacks had it on the comments, so I thought I'd throw it down here because I didn't write it in the comments below. But the Phillies and Mets game on Saturday, 1:10 Eastern Standard Time on Fox, and then Sunday you got to wake up a little bit early for this one at 10:10 a.m. on ESPN. As we continue on, I want to look at the pitching probables for this series. Sean Manaea will be taking on Ranger Suarez, who's making his return. Sean Manaea 3-2 with the 3.63 ERA. Struggled in his last start. I was there during the Darryl Strawberry game. It honestly was a weird outing for him because he threw 10 strikeouts. I mean, one big mistake was the grand slam, I think, from Christian Walker. Outside of that, he was striking out batters. So, it was just a weird pitching performance from him that, maybe one or two pitches and the Mets are, winning that game. Ranger Suarez, we all know, pitches very well against the Mets. A lefty. Lefties always give the Mets trouble. So this is the one matchup that I'm a little concerned about. Then you got Jose Quintana, who's not been really good this season. 1-5, 5.17 ERA. He even struggled in his start against the Diamondbacks. Going up against former Met, former friend Taijuan Walker, who's 3-1 with a 5.73 ERA. But he is not, one of those guys that scare me as a pitcher against the Mets. I think that this Mets lineup can do it. Which one of these matchups, Tom, are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to them both. I've not seen Manaea pitch live, so it'll be good to see him. Ranger Suarez is a very good pitcher, so it'll be, as a pitching fan, it'll be nice to watch him pitch. It'll be nice to see Taijuan Walker again. I did like him when he was with the Mets. I thought he was a likable kind of guy. I just, like you say, I just really hope that Quintana can hold it down and we see one of his better outings. We see more of the veteran side of him where he's in control, he knows what he's doing, and we don't see too many walks, too many pitches outside the strike zone, which unfortunately, like you said, we've seen far too often from him this season.
Let's look at some of the matchups that are going to be happening that I'm looking forward to here on the Philly side, because we can't discount the Phillies. Matchup to watch out for: Nick Castellanos against Sean Manaea. Got a 400 batting average, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 1.400 OPS in 10 at-bats. You go on to the Mets side, and I know it's only 2 at-bats. Jose Iglesias is batting 1,000. I know it's only 2 at-bats, but just the fact that Jose Iglesias has the possibility to be in this lineup. You want the righty in the lineup against Ranger Suarez, especially when this Mets team has struggled so much against the lefties. So that's a matchup that I'm intrigued to watch. And then you go to Sunday's game again. Nick Castellanos, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and a 7.41 OPS against Jose Quintana in 46 at-bats. A bigger change of at-bats right there. So Nick Castellanos is going to be one of those guys you got to watch out for in this series. And then for the Mets, finally, JD Martinez, 467 bat average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, and a 1.233 OPS in 15 at-bats against Taijuan Walker. I really think that the Mets can take care of business against Taijuan Walker. It's now the other side. Can Jose Quintana give us a quality start?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other Phillies that I'm worried about as well is Schwarber. Certainly against Quintana, I think that has potential to do a lot of damage there. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm sat out in center field, so Harrison Bader, I'm assuming, will be starting those games in center field. It'll be good to see him. He's another one where he's really brought the bat, and we've seen the bottom end of the lineup kind of deliver in some of the games. So I certainly wouldn't discount them making a contribution as well, defensively as well as offensively. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to see some great baseball played over the couple of days. And I really hope we come out with at least 1 win. A sweep would be nice, but I'll take 1 win. That's fine.
And I think it was, if I could find it, Carlos Ortiz who said, now I got lost in my comments here. Carlos Ortiz saying possible high scoring game in game 2 with these 2 pitchers. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible with those 2 pitchers on the mound. Look at Jose Quintana has been giving up a lot of home runs this season. Not like him to be doing that. We know what Taijuan Walker is. I mean, he was on the Mets. So you're either going to get a really good outing from him, or he could give up a lot of runs. It could go either way. So very interesting to see how that gets handled there. I like to do who's hot, who's not, but I call it who's ripe and who's rotten for the Mets so far. And hitting wise, who's ripe? Mark Vientos batting .409, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 walks even, and a 1.144 OPS in his last 6 games. Tom, man, Mark Vientos finally getting his opportunity to play on this roster, and he has not disappointed. Even in the game the other day, he had a hit, but one of the big things I took away was he was able to bring in a run from third with a deep sac fly, which we have been asking for players to just bring the runners in, and he did that the other night. It's just what he's been doing on this team. It's nice to see him finally get the opportunity to, solidify his spot on the roster.
Yeah, I think with him, it's been good to see how maturely he's handled being sent down after spring training. I wonder whether he almost walked into spring training thinking it was a sure in for him to be on the team when the season started. We all saw his facial expression when he was asked those questions by SNY, like about being sent down, and I think he's really handled it well. He's gone down, gone about his business. He's come back up. He's really taken his chance, and I mean, sure, it's the thing most Met fans have been screaming about on Twitter for a long time. He just needed a run of games in the team, and he's showing us what he's capable of. And, long may it continue. I'm really happy for the kids. We saw in the offseason he was working hard with Lindor and going about all the right things, making all the right moves. I think, he's certainly a serviceable third baseman for the Mets. We've seen positives from him. There's still some growing pains. He's still got things to work on. He's not the finished article by any means, but we all accept that. We all know that. But I think the fact that his bat is as good as it is at the moment certainly is much needed in this side at the moment. We definitely benefit from that. Like you say, it's not just about hitting the ball out of the park. It's about getting on base and driving in those other runs. And I'm really happy for the kid. He's come back and he's looked a really solid player. He's got his stuff together, and yeah, long may it continue.
The guy that was supposed to, if they didn't sign JD Martinez, the guy who's supposed to be the DH for the Mets, which was going to be DJ Stewart. And right now he's really struggling. He's 2 for his last 20 with 8 strikeouts. Honestly, I don't know how you get him going, because he's not going to get the playing time that he needs to get going. Obviously, he had that really good 2-week span last season, and I was a little weary of it because when September came and he kind of reverted back to the player that he was, the Mets decided to give him the contract. Thankfully, it was just a 1-year deal, but I really don't know how much longer DJ Stewart is going to be on this team. Obviously, if they sell at the deadline and maybe trade JD Martinez, maybe DJ Stewart gets more of a roster spot. I know, it's right to keep him and have him play the outfield. Almost better to see him playing the outfield right now than, Starling Marte, who I know throws runners out at base. But if you just watch Starling Marte out there, his range has just not been good this season. A lot of balls dropping in front of him, a lot of missed plays, even, balls going past him. He's just struggling to get it. And, maybe that's the reason why to keep DJ Stewart on the roster. And DJ Stewart isn't great in the outfield as much either, but, you got to guess have those options left open.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say the same thing. I think if you take him out of the outfield, position, you're left with Tyrone Taylor trying to fill all 3 positions in the outfield. Yeah. And then there's not really much else. And I know they're trying out some of the kids in AAA in the outfield, but it's too soon to start bringing them up to give them a try in the outfield. I think, like you say, Marte, he's just lost that little bit of pace, both when he's running the bases, but also in the field. Like you say, he's just missed a couple of the balls. I think, yeah, if you had a run of 5 games and DJ Stewart played 2 of them in the outfield and maybe DH'd in 1 of them, that's fine. It is what he is on the roster. We knew when he was signed to that contract, he was never going to be in the starting lineup every game. I'm happy for the guy because he kind of got his reward for the 2 weeks. And whilst Martinez was getting himself ready, he played well at the start of the season. And like you say, it has just dropped off. And maybe that is because of the resurgence of JD and he's feeling that pressure. But yeah, as a serviceable sort of rotation guy, I'm happy to keep him around. he does more than enough when we ask him to. And, you know, you're never going to build a team around the likes of a DJ Stewart, but he's the kind of guy you need to have on your team to sort of balance out those off days or the days when, like Amate is having an off day in the outfield.
I got a who's ripe and who's rotten for the for the pitching, which is going to lead to the bullpen. Danny Young, we talked about him earlier. 3 strikeouts in 2 2/3 innings pitched, 0 ERA, 38 WHIP. He's been pitching very well when needed to come in. And the guy who really hasn't, we talked about him, Adam Ottavino, 13.50 ERA, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk. 1 hits batsman because he's been doing that as well. A couple wild pitches he's throwing. Only has 2 strikeouts in the last 1 1/3 innings pitched. Yeah, these guys are 2 totally different sides right now, and the fact that you can count on Danny Young more than Adam Ottavino says a lot.
Yeah, it's the Jekyll and Hyde nature of our bullpen, really, isn't it? And you know full well in 2 weeks' time it'll be a completely different story. Ottavino maybe has turned it around, and we're seeing someone else in that rotten list where they're going through a bad run. I think it's just the ebbs and flows of the season when it comes to the bullpen. Like I said earlier, I'm not too worried because it comes and goes, and as long as we keep scoring those runs and putting the ball into play, we stand every chance of winning a game. So the bullpen's not really my major worry at the moment.
Yep. And if they, like you said, if they score runs, that's going to help out a lot. Definitely does. We've seen it. We saw it this series, and hopefully we can see it in the series against the Phillies in London. 2 players to watch out for, or players to watch on the Phillies roster. Obviously, you talked about Kyle Schwarber, who's always a threat. I can't forget about this guy, Bryce Harper. He's over the last 6 games, 1 double, a home run, 2 RBIs, 3 runs, 5 walks. He's got 286 batting average and an 899 OPS. And then you look at the pitching, Jose Alvarado. I mean, he's always given the Mets fits. 0 ERA in his last 4 innings. He's got 5 strikeouts, no walks. He's given up no runs and only 1 hit, 25 WHIP. Definitely someone to watch out for when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies. That is the series preview for the London series. We're going to take a few more comments in the chat before we wrap up here. Shout out to Maureen. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing to the Subway to Shea channel. We got 140 people in here right now. Appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Got a question from Rosie K. And he's asking, Tom, how did you get into Mets baseball? We did not talk about it in the beginning, so this is a perfect time. Go ahead. How did you get into Mets baseball?
So back in the early 2000s, one of our sort of national television stations over here had a highlights package for MLB, where it was very much like the Barry Bonds, Piazza era, and hey, look at the home runs. Aren't the home runs cool? It kind of focused on that element of the game. And I always used to watch it casually. I never really had a team per se. I enjoyed watching it. It was, I was a teenager. It was fun to watch the home runs. It was something different from British sport at the time. That was really before the explosion of the likes of the NFL and the NBA over here. So I never really fully got into baseball until 2015 when I finally made it to New York for the first time. New York had always been on my bucket list for a number of reasons. I've got a long affiliation with a lot of things from New York, from like music and culture and things like that. Finally made it over. I was actually going over to watch hockey. I'm a big Boston Bruins fan, and they were playing the Islanders. So I tied that in with the trip. We went over, watched the Bruins. They beat the Islanders. Went to a Knicks home opener as well. Watched Knicks game, which was great. But whilst we were there the whole time, it was around the time when they'd just beaten the Cubs in the NLCS and the World Series had just started. And I fell in love with the 2015 Mets. The passion of the fans on SNY when I was back in the hotel each evening, the buzz around the town, everyone was wearing the Mets t-shirts. There was Mets stuff in all the bars. And then I was watching one of the games, and I was in the whiskey tavern, and the bartender was talking about the Mets, and he was trash talking them, saying, "Oh no, you want to be a Yankees fan? Yankees are the best team in New York." I've always hated the Yankees because here in the UK they're a fashion brand. Like you see people wearing Yankees hats, they haven't got a clue who Aaron Judge is. They wouldn't know who Juan Soto is if you walk past them in the street. It's just a fashion brand, and I've always hated that. So the fact that this bartender was spending so much of my evening trying to convert me into a Yankees fan made me even more determined to like the Mets. So yeah, I just fell in love with the 2015 Mets. Never really sort of looked back from that point. 2016 was my first season where I started watching them on a regular basis. I mean, in that season we had Piazza's retirement. Bartolo, one of my favorite Mets of all time, hit his home run. That was I know it wasn't as great as 2015, but 2016 was a great season as well. Certainly from my perspective of my first season watching the Mets. I realized my history of the Mets isn't as storied as many of you guys. I didn't live through 93. I didn't live through 86,
And that's why Shea Parking Lot says, so Tom only has 9 years of misery. Lucky guy.
Yeah. But like, I've had my fair share of misery. I remember the Jed Lowry days and Cespedes falling off the horse and the Wilpons. I have had my fair share of Mets bad stuff, but I fully appreciate, those of you that lived through 93 have had it far worse. And, there's a lot of the Mets history that as I've read through it over the years, it's just solidified my love for this team. And, just being able to go to Citi Field for the first time a couple of years ago was just an incredible experience. I went back last year for 4 games where they swept the Phillies. And just every time I go to New York, every time I go to Citi Field, I just have the best time. It feels like home to me. And, like you mentioned earlier, we've got a really strong Mets fan base here in the UK. There's a lot of Mets fans. I will wear Mets gear when I'm out and about. And often you'll see people and they will recognize the Mets gear. They'll say hello. Like if I ever go down to London, I'm wearing Mets stuff. Someone will always stop me and say, "Oh, Mets," we'll have a conversation. And that's, I know I'm going to plug it again, Mets in the UK. There's all sort of us together as a group, and we're just trying to promote the game over here, promote our love of the Mets. And yeah, we're all just really passionate fans for New York baseball, really.
That's Tom. That's awesome. We're happy to have you aboard here and be a part of this group and this fan base as well. You look back at some of these comments from Ibby, plenty of character building in those 9 years that you've been on here. Shea Park, going to say right on, Tom. And then I think it was Rosie K said the vibe in the city is different when the Mets are good. It totally is. It's Yankee fans can say whatever they want. Obviously, they got the 27 championships and all that stuff, but baseball in New York, and I'm pretty sure you've heard of this, it's always been a National League town. Even going all the way back to the Brooklyn Dodgers, New York Giants, it's always been a National League town. Mets had the town during that 69 era. They definitely had the town during the 86 run as well, during that whole decade. And we're just waiting. We're just waiting for that. We've had little spurts there, 99, 2000, 2006, 2015, like you talked about, 2016, 2022. We're just waiting for it to come again. And I think that we are in capable hands of that happening with a guy who's running this team, who's a fan, an owner who is a fan of this team. So, hopefully we will get to see that happen again. And hopefully I get to see you out at Citi Field at some point. So we'll definitely have to link up when you do come over here. But Tom, this has been a lot of fun for me to have you on the show. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I hope that you enjoy the London series, and let's definitely do, even if there's no London series, I definitely want to have you back on and get your perspective on the game.
Oh, thank you very much, Ant. I really appreciate that. I'd love to link up with you again. That'd be amazing. And I'd be delighted to come back on. It's been a real blast talking baseball with you. So thanks for having me on.
Tom Rayfield, contributor for Mets in the UK. And you can follow Tom. I put it on down here. Follow Tom on X at TomNYMUK and Mets in the UK. Make sure you're following their great content at Mets in the UK. That wraps it up for the Subway to Shea podcast. Thank you to everyone. 147 of you guys in here today. Rosie K, shout out to you. Shea Parking Lot, I appreciate you as well. Maureen, Ibby, Carlos, Duran, everybody that was in this room. I can't thank you all enough. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Carlos Ortiz as well. Everybody, appreciate you all. And like I said, you can follow Subway to Shea podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me on X at Ant Rivera 86 and follow and listen to the Subway to Shea podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And if you're watching like you're doing now, you're probably subscribed already on the YouTube. If not, and if you enjoyed it, please do subscribe. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you all enjoy the London series. Tom, you have a great time out there. I want to see pictures. I want to see videos. I want to see it all posted on your, I guess, Twitter or X page or whatever social media.
Yes, come in for sure. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Enjoy this series. And I always like to end the show by saying, let's go Mets.